All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give folks just a few more minutes here to jump on the Zoom session, and then we'll get started. So I see a number of folks still kind of trickling in. So let's. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes before diving in. But I'd like to welcome all of you to this webinar today. Thanks for joining us. Again, I still see kind of the participant ticker ticking up there, so give it another minute or so here, and then I'll get started. Again, thanks for joining today. All right, seems like it's slowed down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We've got quite a bit to cover. Again, welcome, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Bobby Del Rosario, Product Marketing Manager here at Autodesk, and we've got a really informative presentation for you today where we'll cover findings from a recent study that we conducted that compares the use of Project Explorer to standard tools in Civil 3D. So a lot of good stuff to cover there. A few logistics before we get started. First of all, you are in Zoom, and if at any time during the presentation you experience audio issues, please try to refresh your web browser or switching to a new browser. Oftentimes that can fix the issue. You also do have the option to dial in by phone. Next, also, we do have team members standing by to answer your questions throughout the presentation. So please submit your questions anytime. Simply locate the Q&A tool in Zoom. We will answer your questions online. We'll do the best we can to get all the questions. And at the end, we do have a Q&A session where we'll pull off some of the really good questions, interesting questions, challenging questions, and answer those live. So please do submit your questions. Lastly, we are recording this webinar, and you will be receiving a link to the recording so you can watch the presentation again later or even share it with colleagues. So before moving on, I do have a few polling questions that I'd like to go through with you. So let me launch the first poll here. All right. What is your level of familiarity with Project Explorer for Civil 3D? Either none, you have heard of it, you've tried it, or you're currently using it. I'm going to give it just a few seconds here, maybe just about 10 seconds. 5, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thanks for that. So just sharing the results here. Looks like kind of even split, close to none have heard of it or have tried it, and some of you are currently using it. That's great. All right, another question, poll question coming up here. So which type of firm do you currently work for? Are you in a state and local government, multidisciplinary AEC firm, a specialty firm? Are you in a contractor or construction firm, or other? Again, we'll give it just a few more seconds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, thanks for that. It looks like most of you are in a multidisciplinary AEC firm. It's great. Welcome again to everyone. And one last poll here. Oops, sorry, I think I may have asked that one already. Sorry, here we go. Okay, which type of projects are you currently involved with? Site or land development, roads and highways, bridges and tunnels, storm, drainage, water, wastewater, or other. And again, we'll give you all just a few more seconds here. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. Okay, thank you for that. That helps us understand who all are in attendance today. And looks like most of you are working on site, land development, roads and highways, or storm and drainage. Again, thank you so much for that. Okay, so let's move on here. Again, as I said, we're here to share findings from a recent study that we conducted comparing Project Explorer for Civil 3D versus standard tools in Civil 3D. And this is just a snapshot of the highlights of that study, which we'll share links out in a little bit here, where you can download the full study as well as these highlights. And again, Project Explorer for Civil 3D is included in Civil 3D with the AEC collection. And we'll share more about that once we get started. Okay, so let me introduce our presenter today, an amazing speaker. He's got deep experience in civil engineering and our software. So we have Russ Nicoloy from AMER Technologies, who will be presenting our findings today. And on hand to answer Q&A will be John Sayer and Ben Wardell. So again, a reminder, please do submit your questions. Russ, whenever you're ready, you have the floor.
Excellent, thank you very much. Actually, I think you have to release the screen. It's not letting me share. There we are, okay. There we are, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Good, good, excellent, okay. Well, thank you everyone, and thank you, Bobby. My name is Russ Nicoloy. I'm a civil solutions specialist at AMER Technologies, and I worked on the productivity study that we're looking at today. I've been in the industry for 26 years, including time at a piping utility, site design, and some transportation design, as well as some other facets of the infrastructure and civil industry. And as I look back over projects and workflows that I've been involved with over that time, I'm certain that Project Explorer would have helped in a lot of those things, made my roles easier, made the workflows easier. There have been several times that, specifically when I look back at my pipe utility work, a lot of times I will compare new tools to that time of my design life. And that's when I really see that Project Explorer could have really done a lot of work for us back then. And it's nice to see it around now. For those of you who are new to Project Explorer, maybe you don't know about it, it's a data access tool that allows a user to glean information from Civil 3D objects. Now, a lot of it is just informational. It's something that you can get information from so you better understand where your objects are in relation to the rest of your project. But then a lot of them are actually editable as well. So you can edit as well as access information through the Project Explorer window. So it's a great tool to have next to your Civil 3D and sitting open in a second monitor, perhaps, so that you can access that data quickly. The productivity study that we did compared workflows from stock Civil 3D to the same workflows, a one-to-one comparison with those same workflows using Project Explorer, so that we could see the net effect of that. And in general, I can't tell you that I'm surprised that we saw a lot of time savings throughout the course of the things that we tested. Now, we did find that productivity was faster and you did have some time savings there. But I do want to also caution you that this is the type of tool that the time savings are not going to be huge, because we tested them for a single round of a function or of a workflow. Many of the things that we tested are something that's repeatable, and that's where you're actually going to see a lot more of the savings. The savings are going to add up every time you have to do it. And really, it's kind of scalable in the fact that the larger the project, the more complicated the project, the more times you're going to be running through certain workflows, and you'll be accessing this data more quickly and seeing, seconds become minutes, minutes become hours, and the project grows and gets better from all of that. So So as we're going through this webinar, something that I want you to watch for or listen for is the time savings in particular. Now, that also being said, we did in the study track the user interaction. And in this case, we found a high percentage of reduction in user interaction. Now, user interaction, what we tracked was clicks, whether it be left clicks, right clicks, double clicks, also typing commands in or responding to the command line. Anytime the user had to provide input to a workflow, we counted that. And just like the time savings, we actually saw quite a bit of time savings because information is available on the screen and available to you without having to open something new and close something to get it out of the way, that type of thing. So something else to watch for there was that reduction in user interaction. And also we did look at, now this wasn't something that we could compute or calculate, but we did look at and keep track of the ability to confirm where objects were during the design, what you were selecting, what you were editing, and things like that. It's not something that you can calculate, but it is something that definitely a user would recognize right away that, okay, I can see that before I get to it, or I can see that as I'm editing it, something to keep track of there. So we note that in the study, obviously because we can't calculate it, there's not a hard number for it, but we do calculate where we could see errors would be avoided by being able to see and confirm the data that you're editing. So I do want to also let you know that Project Explorer is a much broader tool than what we were able to cover in the study and what we'll be able to cover today. We're going to focus directly on the study, so we're going to stay on that track. But there's a lot more to the tool than what we studied. One of the challenges that we had was, how do you calculate one-for-one workflow processes from stock Civil 3 to Project Explorer when there are several different ways to do it, and they all may be similar in result. So there were several things that we would like to have tested, but really mathematically and scientifically, we couldn't come up with a proper way to test them. But I will say that in my mind's eye over the course of the study, that I believe the things that we're covering today and covered in the study are representative of what you'll see in other functions and other abilities throughout other workflows that you get involved in. So, excuse me. So that being said, the study and the webinar are going to focus on just a couple of areas. One is the grading, or more specifically, the feature line portion of the grading. We'll also look at corridors, more specifically the region control, as well as assemblies and working with the assembly design and parameters. And then also the pipe networks, a couple different tasks that you can look at in the pipe networks there. So with that, let me switch over to Civil 3D here and look at this directly. What we have here is a feature line. It is a rather large pond area, maybe larger than what we would need in general for a small site like this, but it is a feature line that's set up to be for our grading for our pond. Now, what you can't see from this, I've selected it, you can see in 2D plan view mode, drop-down mode, it's looking great. There's nothing wrong with it. However, there are a couple of errors built into this feature line, or that are in this feature line. This is one of those things that I wish we could have captured the numbers on, but we couldn't. The study starts from the point where there is an error. We really couldn't find a way to scientifically recreate that. So just be aware of that I think there's a lot of time savings just by finding the error quickly, rather than working for a while, not realizing there's a problem, trying to do some grading and have it go sideways on you because there's an error in the feature line that you didn't see. Project Explorer, I think, is going to show that much more quickly. However, for the study, we had to start where we knew there was an error and go from there. So just the fact that we're cleaning this up. I am going to go into the object viewer in Civil 3D. And again, it looks fine from here, but if you orbit it at all, you'll see that there are a couple of very deep spikes in this. Something really easy to see once you get into an isometric view here. Now, this is very common for a feature line. Very often people will type in what they think is an elevation and it ends up being for the slope or grade, and that creates a spike either up or down. In this case, I think what actually happened was there was another feature line in the file that was in the same site, and those will interact even if you can't see them. The first one was had the style turned off, and so we couldn't see it. So it dragged those 2 points down to 0 or to near 0, causing the issue. So from there, I'm going to close out the object viewer and go in and just start to fix this in Civil 3D. I'm going to use the elevation editor for this. Now, one of the things I thought would be the problem is that the numbers can kind of camouflage themselves. If you have a small error, you may not see them right away. In this case, though, the slopes are what give it away. We've got 4-digit, 5-digit slopes here, or grades. And that really highlights this number, which again kind of hides, but you can certainly see it one way or the other. So I'm just going to go in and fix that number. Somebody just typed it in wrong, perhaps, and now we fixed that. Now there is a second error there. I left one behind for Project Explorer, so I am going to close that out, and then I'm going to open up Project Explorer. In 2022, it's now in the Home tab of the ribbon if you've installed it. In the dialog here, I'm going to go over to the Feature Line tab. And I can tell you right now, this is the moment where I can tell there's a problem. If you're not used to Project Explorer, it may not be obvious, but it will in a second. What we should be seeing here for a feature line is a profile view style view of this. Now, first of all, I really like that in general, not just for the error finding or troubleshooting process, but just because that gives me a visual of what the feature line is doing. I know what a slope looks like, or what a 2% grade on a line looks like, but if I can have a visual to back it up, that really helps. So that's one thing. What we're seeing here is one of these lines is down at 0 or to near 0. You can even see the white line of the feature line dropping down there. Everything else is near the top of our pond. Now, what we should be seeing is much wider than it is deep, but because of this, it's deeper than it is wide, again, indicating an issue. Now, down below is where I can actually identify, well, here's the 0 that we've got a problem with, and the grades are also way out of whack and also kind of bringing your attention to this area. So right there, I'm going to enter in 846 and bring that in. Now, I do have to click off to the side and then refresh that. This is what we should have been seeing. This is a normal pond top or grading feature line. Now, the other thing that I can do here is, maybe they shouldn't all be at the same elevation. I could come through here and confirm using the little yellow marker where I am along that feature line. So I could go in and make changes to the elevations, or I could, get in and change some slopes and do some editing that way. So that's really that comparison of the Civil 3D, stock Civil 3D version of troubleshooting that and the Project Explorer. Now, I do want to mention also Project Explorer generally I have on a second screen because it is a modeless window, so I can zoom and pan to my project here, but I get some more screen real estate if it's off to the side. I have it on the screen just because the one screen for the webinar here, but you can then jump back and forth looking at this, checking information, finding where it is in the drawing file there. In the study, you'll see that we actually saved about half as much time using Project Explorer, and actually way more clicks. The user interaction numbers were much better for the Project Explorer here. So with that, let me switch over to a corridor file. And in the corridor file, we're going to look at this in Civil 3D first. First of all, I'm looking at this and I can see that right here, we've got a problem. I should have shoulder and sidewalk on one side or the other. I'm going to go into my corridor properties to take a look at that. Now, one of the things here is this is not modeless, so I can't move that. If I need to move this off to the side here, I need to close that out. In the properties down here, it does highlight. So as I'm going through here, I can find which region I'm having issues with. I can come over to the assembly area here click the drop down or the change option there and switch out to whichever assembly I want to work with. There. Now I'm going to click OK to rebuild that corridor, and that will update there. Getting some messages, those aren't really a problem, but I could track those down pretty quickly. But I now have that in there. Now I did have to open a couple of dialog boxes to get to that information. So just keeping that in mind as I pull in the Project Explorer to do the same function. I'm going to go to the corridor tab. And in here, the corridor is selected so I can see the different regions that I'm working with here. And it was the third one that we were working with there. I will click in that assembly field and then choose that no sidewalk option. I'm actually going to send it back to the way that it looked previous. I'll click OK. And then the rebuild button is right here. Now notice I didn't have to open up, open up a dialog to get to the assembly, but I can now go in and rebuild that, and it does update. One thing, the surface didn't update there. That is a graphic anomaly. I'm just going to regen my screen, and that surface will update as well. So something else that I can look at here, and I'm going to put this in context. Technically, the time was not as great a difference here. The clicks were about half as many for the Project Explorer, but I think you also get that preview window up above that you can kind of double check what's going on in the corridor there. Now, because this region and the region before it end at the same station there, I actually have to advance one click into the region so I can see what that assembly is actually looking like. But like I said, then I can confirm what that's doing. Normally I would have to look at either a cross-section view or the section view editor, which takes a little while to open and navigate through. This will get us that information more quickly so you can confirm that before you're done with an edit. Now let me here to look at the start and end stations for the regions that I have here. If I go back into my corridor properties, I've zoomed in a little too much here. I'm going to go to the first region here, and the end station for that region, I'm going to make that 250 instead of 275. Then the next start region, I actually want that to go back to that as well. So I need to type in 250 there. I'm going to go into the 325 station, make that 320. Now, I'm going to make this 320 to match that. Now, so far, I've been creating little gaps that I've had to backfill here. This next one, I'm actually going to go forward with, I'm going to say that's 390. Now, notice the next field there does advance itself because the regions can't overlap. If I was creating something that created a gap there, it would have made me set this one, but the 390 set automatically, so I don't need to click that. So quite a bit of efficiency there as far as that goes. I'm going to click OK and then rebuild that corridor. And there you can see that effect in there. I'm going to shift this over just a little so we have more room for the Project Explorer. And in here, I'm basically going to undo some of those changes. I'm going to double click on that 250 and set it back to 275. And that does, of course, push the next region up, just like it did in the Civil 3D side. We did calculate one for one, so we didn't ignore that fact. I'm going to go to 325 for that. And for this one, I'm going to actually shorten that. I'm going to go to 385. And then I have to go to the next one and type in 385 there. So really the access points there, again, not a ton of time savings on that front, but we did save on the clicks, and I can rebuild from here, cutting the clicks down by half about, and there you can see the updates to our corridor based on that. And again, you can confirm the stations that you have in the Project Explorer. So with that, let me switch over to the assemblies. And in here, what we're going to do is make some changes to multiple assemblies and multiple sub-assemblies. Now, I want to address something right up front. We thought of this as we were testing, and so this, we figured this in. If I was to change all of these lanes here, in fact, I could even grab a couple lanes on the other side. They don't all have to be on the same side. and I go to the properties palette, this properties palette would be the same that you use to build the assemblies in the first place. All of these I could change with one change here. I can change the width on this. I'm going to make them 20 feet, and they all update anything that I had selected there. There is no way to be faster than that. So that is not what we're testing here. I want to make sure that everybody understood that we did know that and go into it with that in mind, that that process was probably not going to be beat by anything. Now, the part that we did test, however, was going into individual assemblies, making changes to individual sub-assemblies. Some of them will be similar, but not all of them. And so you're going to be accessing dialog after dialog to get in here. So I'm going to go into the assembly properties of this first one. And in the construction tab, maybe make the left lane back to the, I'm going to make it 17 instead of 20. I'm going to make the right-hand urban sidewalk. In fact, I'm going to drop it down here so we can see this happen. I'll do 7 for that. And the inside boulevard will be 3, kind of expanding the width of that while maintaining. I need to do a daylight general here. Need to come down and change the flat cut slope here to 5.5 to 1 for whatever reason in our project there. I'll click OK. And now I'm going to actually come down here to the this assembly down here, go to that assembly properties. And I do want to change the daylight there to that 5 to 1. And the urban sidewalk on that side should also be, this is going to be actually 7 foot, but I want the inside boulevard to be 10 in that region for some design purposes. And the lane on this other side, I'm going to make 17 feet as well. Now, you'll notice that I'm choosing to use the assembly properties. We decided that that was probably the fastest and the most reasonable way to access many of the sub-assemblies. You can go into each sub-assembly individually, but if you were to do that, even though you can access the data about this sub-assembly and make that 17 feet wide, you are not saving time because you're actually opening and closing more dialog boxes to get to all the different things that I just changed there. So with that, let me move that off to the side there and bring Project Explorer in. Let me take a look at the Assemblies tab here. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying the thing I like about this is all my assemblies are in front of me. All of the sub-assemblies are there after I select which assembly I'm working in, and all of the sub-assembly parameters are right next to that. So I'm going to come in the main road here. The lane here was 15. Actually, I'm going to make that 17 like some of the others we've done. The urban curb and gutter general on the right-hand side there. And again, I'm highlighting so I can see that's the right-hand side. Maybe, oh wait, I got to do the left-hand side instead. I can come down here and then change the sub-base depth to 2 feet, something along those lines. Now I can switch over to a different assembly and then go in and change the sub-assembly parameters there and so forth. Maybe I need to change this to a pavement depth of 0.5 or 6 inches there and there. Oh, 0.5 wide pavement would not work. So there we are. And like I said, you're getting that instant feedback. So you know, actually a preview of what you're about to change, which has saved me many times from editing the wrong thing. But then you also get to see how that is ending up. Now, I don't want to dissuade here. You're getting the end result, but you will get the end result over in the stock Civil 3D version as well. So these are things that comparatively, I think you do, and the study bears out, you do get quite a bit of benefit to having everything in front of you and just next to you rather than having to keep opening dialog boxes and accessing data that way. So with that, let's switch over to pipes and take a look at some pipe workflow process here. I spent a lot of time in utilities, water and gas in particular. And one of the things that we were always doing was trying to make sure that our pipes were never breaking the minimum or maximum depth, minimum in particular. I live in a colder climate and the frost line's a problem. So we need to make sure that our pipes were never going to be in the zone where it was going to be a problem. One of the things that we used to do to prove that out was to create a copy of our surface profile and then drop that down the amount that we needed. Now, is that absolutely necessary? No. In fact, if I select on a pipe here, I'm going to go into the pipe network, enter in here into the data grid, switch over to pipes, and there you can see that I'm getting warning markers. The green check marks means everything's fine. The red markers are indicating that there's a minimum or there's some kind of rule broken. If I hover over it, it'll actually tell me the minimum cover is violated for this. And I know I need to go fix that. What it's not telling me is by how much and where. If I close out that data there, the reason why we did this was so that we would know in context where that error was and what we could do to fix it again in context. So I'll select on that surface profile. I need to go up and turn it from a static, I'm sorry, from a dynamic profile that's dynamically linked to a surface to a static, which is editable. Now, this is the moment where I start to get nervous. In fact, this isn't even a real project right here, and my heart rate kicked up a little bit because I'm nervous about this already. I've removed the net now and our safety net is gone. I could accidentally edit this this profile and cause problems with it going back to a dynamic link to its surface. So first of all, a couple extra steps here that we do, and it could introduce some error to your project. That being said, if I'm careful, I'll go up to the geometry editor. I'm going to copy this profile. I'm going to copy the whole thing. I just need the whole profile in there to be simplified. And I close that. Now I have two profiles here. The original or the existing conditions is this first one in the list. So I'm going to choose that, go back to the profile and turn my update back to dynamic, and then take a deep breath because I made it without messing up that profile. With that, however, I am going to select on, you can see I can select between the original or that copy. I'll select the copy, go back into geometry editor, select it again there, and then use the raise lower command in the toolbar here to drop it by the minimum depth that I'm looking for. In this case, it's going to be -6 feet. I'll say okay, and that drops that down. Now I'm going to hit escape, let go of it, close that out. And this is why we were seeing errors in the Civil 3D data grid view, because I believe these pipes were actually put in when my minimum rule was set to 3 feet rather than 6 feet. So I've got a little bit of a problem there. Well, one of the nice things about doing it this way is that you can drop this down and find where that's going to be below there. In fact, I could even go in and maybe make some adjustments here to the slope to make it a more efficient drop down of pipe, that trenching that I'm about to do. However, actually, I'm kind of looking forward here to see, well, I'm going to need a little bit more depth there. So maybe I can't fix that slope so much, but I can drop this down and then maybe adjust that slope so that that's more appropriate for this area here. The other thing I liked about this was that it always seemed that our pipes were going underneath a ditch, and this will bring that ditch in so that you could see, yeah, it's breaking the minimum depth here, but it's only in this 3-foot section, or this very localized section, and the edits that I do here can be for that specific area, and so my edits are going to be more efficient as well. And actually the project, when it gets out to the field, becomes more efficient because I didn't just drop it down 3 feet to give myself clearance. So with that, at the end of this, that profile gets discarded because it was really just a construction line so that I could tell where I was. And I don't want others to be confused by it. So I will get rid of that. So now that being said, I'm going to go over here to the Project Explorer window and access the pipes tool here. We've got our network in here. I am going to go over to the pipes tab, and you'll notice here, first of all, that magenta text is editable. And I was hoping to see a lot of magenta text here, but I'm seeing a lot of red text. Also, I'm seeing error markers on the right hand or on the left hand side here. And if I hover on those, they're telling me that this pipe has a minimum pipe cover error. It should be 6 feet, but it's violated by 1.97 feet or feet. The reason all of this text is red is so that if you are scrolling through here and getting to other data, you can see which rows still have errors that need to be addressed in there. So again, very similar to the data grid in Civil 3D. It does provide the information, but I think it's a little bit more the information that you need to fix this more appropriately. But something else that I want to show, actually, I'm going to take my preview window and kind of zoom in a little bit here from structure 1 to structure like 5 or 6, I think, will give us a little bit better view of what's going on here. And you can see this red shaded area in the preview window. That is a shading that is provided that matches up with our minimum and maximum depth rules for this pipe network. So I've assigned a pipe rule set with minimum maximum pipe rules, and that's what the result is in this window, so that I can get not only idea of where the errors are, which pipes are having errors. I can find that here, but I can see where along the pipe the errors are, how much, what's the context of the error with that shading. So that being said, one of the things that we added into the productivity study was that you would have to or want to check that the settings for this is correct, that your rules are set correctly. So I'm going to go over to the settings tab and go down to pipes, expand the pipe rules, and then edit the pipe rule that I have down there. You'll see that cover and slope is involved here. That's why we have the shading. And here the minimum and maximum cover are set to 6 and 15. Actually, originally when the pipe was built, I believe I had it set to 3 and 10. That's why we had some problems after it was built. But there you can see that it's set correctly here. Now, we do call this out in the productivity study. That setting should have been set in my company's template or in my organization's template before I got started. Perhaps it needed to be tweaked for something, but it is something that you should already have set, so you shouldn't need to check it. The other thing is even if you needed to check it, the time spent checking that you do once, and then you shouldn't have to check that again for the rest of the project, or at least wherever that pipe rule set is engaged in your project. So the amount of time saved by the Project Explorer version of this is really huge, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that I had to do to kind of check to see where things were. I at least had to open up the dialog box to see where the errors were and still didn't get the context of them. This is much closer, and I'm able to see right there. Now I'm going to move off to the side here as I drop this pipe down. And unfortunately, it is zooming out on me there, but I can zoom back in on that pipe and take a look and see. First of all, the text is now purple, so I know that there's no errors there, no matter what the errors be, a broken slope, broken depth, whatever it might be. But so I know it's a clean pipe, but now I can also see along it, where is it close? What's the context of how that pipe is looking? And then go on and start in on the next pipe area there as well. Let me move that off to the side here. I'm going to hit escape there. Another thing that tended to happen often in a pipe project where piping is involved is something is going to be crossing the pipe network that we have here. Maybe it's a proposed utility that we didn't have information on when we were designing our system here. Maybe it's something existing that we just were made aware of, but we don't have it yet. We've got some information, but we don't have it in our profile view yet. We haven't drafted it in. I'm going to find out what the elevation is along our pipe. The labels for pipes generally will give you the information of crown, centerline, or invert elevation at the start or the end station of a pipe, at the structures. But I want to know what the crown elevation is somewhere in the middle here. So I'm going to go to the second pipe here. And one of the things I would do is set the style for this pipe to show the outer pipes. I'm using the out of the box style here, so it's showing the inside of the pipes, which is good for a lot of the functions I need to do. But in this one case, I need to see the outer walls of it. So I would either create a style for that or edit the style. Again, because we were trying to be a one-to-one match for the workflows here, what I'm going to do is just go in and edit the pipe style. I will let you know that I'm against this in principle because I like the styles to be to do their job and then move on to choose another style for something else. But since this is something so quick, I'm just going to set this temporarily. And in here, I'm going to go to the display tab, the view direction profile, and turn on the outside pipe walls. Click OK. And now wherever that style is, we got outside walls, even if it's just a temporary thing. As I mentioned, the labeling of the pipes is going to label at the start or end station, not along the pipe. So to label this or find the elevation, I could hover my cursor there, or I could label the profile view itself. I'm going to select the profile grid, go to the add view labels, the station and elevation, and then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to nearest snap to the top of my pipe at a non-round station at 168.32, and then at the elevation at that station. Get a little bit careful there that I don't drift off of it, but there is that elevation. So at 168, the elevation is 840.96, almost 841 right there. So that being said, let me bring Project Explorer back over here. For this, I'm going to go to the pipe run area. The pipe run tab for pipes has this interval area. Now the interval is not unique to the pipe runs. It is in other things that have station options like alignments and profiles in particular. But I can see information about my pipe network per the station that I choose. So if I come over here, I can look at the invert, centerline, crown, elevation, and so forth at the station I'm looking for. And actually, I still have it set to 1 here. Let me set it back to 10, which is what I normally run at. I do have to find the pipe that I'm working with here. What I'm doing is I'm selecting the structure that is the start of the pipe there, just so I can kind of get my bearings there. It's giving me the graphic indication of where I am. And that station was at 168. Now, if I go to 170, that's close to that location there. And I could get the crown elevation, centerline, or invert elevation at that station. But for the study, we had to define what success was. So we defined it as the nearest foot. You can do this to the nearest, to decimal feet as well. The downside is the smaller number that you put into the interval, the more you have to scroll through to get to it. So I'm going to set this to 1 foot. And now instead of at every 10 feet, I'm at every 1 foot increment along here. I do have to scroll down to get to 168. 168.2. So I'm closer to 168 than 169. This is my crown elevation there, 840.97. Close to that. I mean, it's within 100th of the elevation that I picked up with my label there. Close enough for what we needed to find out where this crossing is going to be and whether we were going to have enough room for our design, or do we need to make a move. So I'm going to set this back to 10 feet so I don't need to zoom around so much in the next area there. So with that, those are the functions that I wanted to show from the productivity study. Hopefully you saw the time savings in some of these functions, as well as the savings on opening and closing things or clicking on things. I would like to go back to John. Do we have any questions that came in for this?
Oh, we do. We do have some questions, but first I'd like to take people out and show them something here. Can I share my screen real quick?
Yes, yeah, let me stop mine. There you are.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so one of the main questions that we always get is where do you get Project Explorer? And the fact is that you get it out at manage.autodesk.com. I will go ahead and say this, it does come with the AEC collection. So you need to have the collection or licensing for the collection in order to get it. But I wanted to show you real quick where to get it at. So I'm at manage.autodesk.com. And if I just select all products and services, and then we will pick the AEC collection here. So I've got a couple different ways I license. So I'm just going to select the first one, and I'll select view all included items. So when you when you get to the list of all of the included items inside of the AEC collection, you can scroll down, and here under Civil 3D, this is where you would pick your latest and greatest version or back to 2017. You'll see Project Explorer right here. I'll just throw this out there. You also can, grading optimization is the same. You locate it and grab it at the same place. Okay, it's a separate install too. So, but Project Explorer is right here. You do have the 2022 and 2021 versions that you can grab and install. All right, so I just wanted to be sure that we did take you out and show you where to get that. It's very easy. Just go to manage.autodesk.com and log in, and you should be able to find it very quickly under the AEC collection. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop my sharing. All right, and we did have several questions here.
Hey, John, before diving into questions, if you don't mind, let me.
Probably should do the polling question, correct?
Yeah, let me just go through a couple of things here. You can see my screen, right? Grab it real quick. You can see my screen, right, John?
No, I cannot. Oh, yes, I can. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
awesome, great. Okay, yeah, just wanted to thanks first to Russ for that presentation, and John for sharing where folks can get access to Project Explorer for Civil 3D. And we did share a link to the study in the chat. If you have not seen that, venture over to the chat tool and grab the link there. And also wanted to just share, we have this AEC industry webinar portal, which is your one-stop shop for upcoming and on-demand webinars. So go to autodesk.com/webinars/AEC. And there's just a treasure trove of webinar presentations there. So with that, let's get the Q&A started. But while we get that started, let me launch. We've got one final poll that I'm just going to keep up here while John and Russ go through some of your questions. So, gentlemen, off to you.
All right. One thing I did want to point out, there was somebody added something to one of in the Q&A dialogue about that you can get Project Explorer also you'll find it in the desktop app. And yes, that is true. But if you don't, I have, for some unforeseen reason, I'll go ahead and turn my camera on so you can see me. For some unforeseen reason, sometimes it takes a bit for that desktop app to update. It may just be me, maybe just be my machine, but you can find it there, but you can always find it at manage.autodesk.com. So, okay, so the first, I'm just going to read through these questions that have been asked. I'll go ahead and answer the first one because it's very simple and straightforward. Is Project Explorer available in 2021 and above, or even 2020 with the AEC collection? You saw back under manage.autodesk.com, it was 2021 and 2022. So that would be the answer for that one. Here's one for you, Russ. Will the corridor regions highlight with Project Explorer as when editing the corridor through the parameters?
Yeah, and I wish I could say yes to that. It does not, at least at this time, it does not highlight that. That is something that would have made those edits a little bit easier. However, knowing where you are and what assembly that you're working with, it was pretty easy to find the region that we were working in there. So,
well, but you can highlight some things, right? There is selection.
Yeah. There are quite a few things in Project Explorer that will highlight. Just the regions on the corridor were not one of them, unfortunately. But
so how do you get them to highlight?
Oh, you mean the corridors themselves, the corridor regions?
No. The question was is there anything in Project Explorer that you can somehow control to highlight when you select? I think the answer was just by pressing your control key and then selecting. Yeah, sorry, I kind of threw you off there. I apologize.
Right. No, quite right.
But yeah, you can hit control on your keyboard, and then you can select things out of the menu or out of the Project Explorer, and it should highlight on your screen. Mm-hmm. They are adding to that, so hopefully that's something that they add in the future. Let's see. All edits in Project Explorer seem to be instant with no ability to cancel out or not accept a particular change. Is that accurate?
No, I believe you can click the X on the dialog and back out, or the escape key. The escape key's always been my favorite key because it gets me out of everything. So, so yeah, you can. Now it's not going to, you can type something different immediately while you're there, but if you escape, you can get back out of that. So,
Okay. Here's one. When editing the assemblies in Project Explorer, can you graphically select the subassembly in the preview window and above to have it select the proper subassembly below in the list?
I don't believe so. And correct me, John, if I'm wrong about that. I'm not aware of it. If you can, that would be kind of cool. But yeah, really, it's just about highlighting it up there so that you can see where that is.
Right, right. I believe that's what I've seen too. Ben will correct us. I think he's trying to answer the question also. So, in pipes, are you able to edit the pipe slopes to have a constant grade over selected pipes?
Yes, yeah. There's a right-click menu. One of the things I didn't really show here because we didn't use it as much in this, but the right-click menus in Project Explorer have a lot of different options that you can use. And doing these slopes is one of those things that the right-click menu holds. Yeah, and that's, like I said, we didn't test that, so we didn't show that today, but yeah, that is something that is pretty useful on the pipe side of things in particular. You can also do that for other things like feature lines. I think I may have even mentioned it there. We didn't test it, but I mentioned it, and some other options like that. So when you're using Project Explorer, I highly recommend trying that right-click menu in different areas because you may get some other options that you weren't expecting or maybe you're looking for.
Okay. Looking through here, scrolling through, had a bunch of great questions. Can you edit, and I may have already asked you this, but I'm going to do it again. Can you edit styles with Project Explorer? And I don't think they mean edit what style an object was applied to, but the style itself.
No, and to your point, you can switch the style that's assigned to an object, but you can't edit the style directly there. And again, John, let me know if there is something that I hadn't noticed about that, but I don't believe that's like a right-click option or anything. That is something that you will go to the settings tab for that still.
Yeah, I don't believe you can. Can you see multiple surfaces in the profile view?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm trying to think. Well, I just used it for a project and we were doing that. We were checking against things. In the preview, especially for profiles, alignment profiles, all of the profiles will be listed underneath an alignment and you can see all of them in context. They will each individually highlight under there as well. And then there was another factor of that I was going to share. You can even filter it out so you're only looking at certain ones. So if you've got an overabundance of surfaces to look at there, you can kind of take those out. Yeah, it seems to me that there was another aspect to that I wanted to answer, and I apologize, but yeah, the short answer is yes, absolutely.
Might actually kind of dovetail into there was another question. This is what they saw the word compare up there in the dialogue. What does compare? What does it do?
Thank you. You know me well, John. Thank you. That was exactly what I was going to bring up, actually. The compare function is incredibly useful for finding the context of where you are with an object. Whatever object you have selected, whatever tab you're on, be it alignment, profile, feature line, whatever, if it has that compare option, you can compare to other objects in this file. Now, you can't do it to other things in other files, but in this file. And in the sub-object data table down below towards the bottom, you're able to go through and actually get information about how far away something is, what the elevation difference is between two things. There's actually like 7 or 8 different fields down there, northing, easting, distances, elevation differences, and that type of thing. So that can give you a quick comparison, a quick look, and give you that context of where you are in comparison to something else. And you can switch between different objects very quickly up there. And those numbers will update as well. So yeah, the compare feature is really nice for when you're trying to find things and where you are.
Yep. And that does enable you, like you said, to look at multiple surfaces at the same time. So it is very, very handy. There's a question here, and I hope I get it right. It says, could you edit a field in Project Explorer without an input dialog box popping up?
Boy.
And what I'm thinking of, and I could be wrong here, and the person that asked this question can definitely put that in the Q&A that I am wrong. That's not what they mean. But I'm thinking like if when you select that you want to add like a specific surface elevation, or you want to select a surface to add to like a structure or a set of structures that are in there, you can pick the surface name, and a dialog box pops up, and it just shows EG, FG, whatever surfaces you have in there. That's where you pick it from. The only other way, the answer, I think, and I'm going to throw this out, is that there are inputs that you can edit that don't have a dialog box come up, but there are fewer and far between. If you're doing something globally, like you're grabbing a whole set of structures and you want to set the same surface elevation, I believe, I honestly, I think that you can change it. Nope, there's a pop-up box that comes up,
Right.
and it changes all of them at once.
In fact, I was
so
thinking that too,
yeah,
that a lot of times it happens so frequently that I can't think of a time it doesn't, but it's such a minor part of the workflow that I don't think it's a real problem that it pops up that way. Some of the menus, as you mentioned, are drop-down menus. Others are typed in. Some of my favorites are actually for the pipes themselves, where they let you control the start, end, elevations, or the slopes, or the grade of the pipe. You've got several, a whole bunch of different choices to make there. So your entry method is actually changing depending on the object that you're working with. But all of them do, I believe, have a dialog box involved in them somehow.
Yeah, there are places, and like I said, they're few and far between. Like you showed earlier, like changing the interval, right? Of, you went every 10 and then you changed it to every 5 so that you could see every 5-foot interval and stuff like that. Those types of things are going to be editable singularly, or without a dialog box or a pop-up. So I'll tell you what, Russ, that's pretty much all the time that we have for questions. Thank you. I appreciate it. Bobby, we'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Russ, for the presentation. I'd like to thank John and Ben for their support doing the Q&A, and John for leading that Q&A exchange. That was great. And thanks everyone for joining today. That concludes our webinar. Thank you very much.